talk shoes, man. Fashion or function?
Um, function. Oh,
Yeah,
fashion's nice, but it gets you hurt sometimes. So function.
yeah. So obviously different, activities, purposes call for different types of shoes potentially. But in general, let's start in general, big picture. What do you like in shoes? What do you recommend?
Well, if we're dealing with, since we're on the athletic, topic here, and we'll discuss something that probably I get the most questions about is running shoes. What do I do with running shoes? There are so many brands and there's so many ways, that shoe companies make their shoes look better with different types of, they have a course to them and different types of foam now and air pockets and everything else. A lot of it is like glitz and it looks really good. A lot of shoes are really good looking shoes, I'm sure, as you can tell, but how functional are they? What are we really looking for? And what we have to look for are two basic things. And beyond that, if you want your fashion, you can have your fashion, but you got to have the function first.
All right, what are those two things that you're really looking for?
The first thing that I'm looking for in a shoe is what's called a zero drop. So when we're looking at a shoe, if we were to you can't really see it from the outside of the shoe, so it makes it difficult, but the shoe brands tend to list them on their websites, or you can dig or contact the company and they'll generally tell you. The companies that are very proud of a zero drop or close to it will announce it. The ones that aren't kind of keep it quiet. But let's talk
Mhm.
about what that is exactly is from the heel, I'll go on this side, to the toe in your shoe. I'll just pull you out here. There's
There
a
we go.
drop.
Yep.
There's a drop down. And it's inside the shoe. I mean, it's inside before you get to the base of your
So we're
foot is.
really we're really talking about how much your heel is elevated.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. From the heel to the toe. And generally speaking, some shoes are 10, 12, you used to be even up to like 14 millimeters. So Mark, envision almost like walking in a high heel shoe. That's certainly nothing we want to be running in, jogging, running, sprinting, anything in, because what we're doing all the time is we are loading the body differently by shortening the calves. So when the shoe is naturally like this and we're running or moving, we can't get that dorsiflexion, that ankle dorsiflexion as great as we want it because we're always down like this.
Hmm.
That's why
Hmm.
in zero drop, we're starting here so that we get proper movement in the ankle joint, which is extremely, extremely important to avoid injury. And of course, transmitting of improper ground reactive forces up the chain as we go, which means basically transmitting that energy up into the knee, the hip, the low back.
Can you just hop right into these things, or is there an adjustment period? Most people haven't looked that deeply into their shoes.
Great question. If you're wearing a shoe right now, let's say you're wearing a shoe that's 10 millimeter drop and you go to a 0 millimeter drop shoe, it's going to feel quite different. And the reason is because the running stride is different. When we tend to have a shoe that is a higher heel to toe drop, we tend to be more upright when we run. That's just the way the body kind of compensates for it. When we have a zero drop shoe, then we are basically running a little bit forward, which is natural. Gait or walking, almost by definition, is falling forward and catching yourself. And that's actually what it is. And so basically, how your ankles are hitting the ground and how you're dropping, will determine what's going on with that.
So zero drop in my mind is trying to mimic being barefoot to some extent, right? How we would walk before shoes were ever made. So our foot was fairly level.
Yeah, we are supposed to be barefoot. The notion of building shoes only began when roads were built, and before that, we were barefoot all the time. And there are two ways of looking at how the shoes are made. One is a minimalist fashion, where we have a zero drop, but like nothing under the shoe, maybe a piece of rubber. And if you're going to run on grass or on dirt or sand, that's ideal. That's perfectly fine. But most people are road running or even trail running where it gets hard, there are rocks or whatever else. So we go with something called a maximalist shoe. So it's a zero drop. So it's still like you're barefoot, but you've padding to absorb impact, which is great. There's forced transmission and then there's impact. And that's also when we look at like we can get into another talk another time about forefoot running and midfoot and high foot running, that the changes in terms of the amount of impact versus shock absorption. And that's why there are bone injuries with certain forms of running that we see more than with others. But with a zero drop shoe, I like to go more of the maximalist. So we have nice protection for our feet and our joints. We have shock absorption, but yet we still mimic being barefoot. So we're not loading, the ground reactive forces aren't loading in a natural fashion.
These days, when you go to a really good, say, running store, they're going to have you go stand on this device and it's going to scan your foot and then it's going to suggest to you the shoes that match your feet. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I have some problems with that. I think a lot of times people in shoe stores aren't really fully trained in injury prevention, joint biomechanics, how the muscles in the ankle and the feet are working, the particular sports you're involved in. And remember, if you analyze someone on a device, let's say they have a pathomechanical gait, or there's something wrong with their gait already, their ankles are moving well, they're already suffering from a little bit of, flat foot or a high arch, and you put them on a device, it's going to give them something specifically for what it shows there. But meanwhile, if a problem is structural, that might be great. But a lot of problems are functional, which means they should be corrected. They shouldn't be there. But that's going to lock them into that pathomechanical gait, and that can be very dangerous too.
Wrapping this up, are there any brands, that you think are especially good with this either zero drop or approaching zero drop?
Yeah, and I'm going to name two brands, and I don't get compensated by them. It's a shame. I've always told all my patients if I were to get $1 for every pair of Hoka shoes that I recommended, I would have been retired years ago. I've been recommending Hokas for to my runners, my triathletes, casual and more serious, for gosh, forever. And they make most of their shoes are in the like 5 to 6 millimeter heel drop range. And if the idea is to get to zero, well, come on, that's not too good then, right? I usually consider 5 millimeters and under as quite reasonable, and very little to adapt to, but it's also very comfortable with the stride. Another brand that I really like is Ultra, an Ultra Zero Drop. And a quick story about that. I wear this shoe. This is a Clifton. This is a Hoka Clifton.
Mhm.
And I love that shoe to run in. That's my primary running shoe. And I've also worn the Ultra Torns, which are zero drop. And here we go. I'm a sports med guy, and I run in a zero drop with plenty of pretty high stack height, which is the amount of foam. And about the 2 mile mark, I feel my right calf kind of twing, ding, like just a little bit. That's because my body position is different. I'm leaning forward, and because it's also utilizing everything properly. Now age might play in with this. When you're younger, it's easier to adapt. You get a little bit older, it's not. But they just came out with a new shoe, which is the Ultra FWD, which is right here, which is the first Ultra shoe with a 4 millimeter drop. And I ran 4 miles in it yesterday, and I was like, I like it more than my Hoka even. It
Mm.
was an amazing ride. It rolled properly. On kind of a midfoot striker. It was extremely comfortable. I had no issues whatsoever. That 4 millimeters, although it doesn't seem like a lot, it is a lot. A very, very comfortable ride. So to sum it all up with that, Mark, sorry to make this so long, is I think if you're at 5 to 6 millimeters or under, you're in good shape. Find a shoe you like, keep it pretty low, but get enough padding. And of course, the padding is going to really be um, based on your body weight. If I'm 200 pounds and I'm running, I might need more padding than someone who's 130 pounds and running. Remember, when we're jogging, it's about 3 to 5 times our body weight with every stride. So we do want a shoe that absorbs a lot of that impact, so our joints are not taking it all the time.
Right. And for those that want to go looking for it, Ultra is Altra. It's not Ultra like
Yes,
UL, it's AL.
ultrarunning.com. Yeah, and
Yeah.
Hoka. Yeah,
So good running stores will carry them. You can find them online.
yes,
So
yes.
speaking of running, I know, Alan, you're about to head off for some youth soccer matches.
Day two, and still some good soccer to be played, and hopefully, my daughter's team gets to the championship. We'll say.
All right, cool, man. I hope they don't red card you. So,
Hasn't happened yet. Hopefully, it doesn't.
all
Thanks,
right,
Mark.
man.
Thanks for that sentiment. Yeah, I'll talk to you soon.
I'll talk to you.
All right, take care.